Hey everybody, remember the disclaimer, and to vote in the top 10 of 2018, link will be below. Also, support my Patreon, because those Patreon supporters got to see preview images, work in progress shots, and high resolution images of the completed figure. That link is also going to be below. Alright folks, this is Wake Angel 2001 coming at you with the second part of Vance JB 123's commission. It is the Egg Walker. Yeah, figures this guy, like, the first part of his commission will be a simple repaint, and then the second part of his commission will be some amazingly complicated, massive scratch build that I've never done before, huh? Well, anyway, I determined that in order to make an Egg Walker that Eggman could properly sit in, and basically to be in scale with the Jazz Wars line, I would need a ball that was 4 inches in diameter, and also made out of a sturdy enough plastic that I would be able to cut into it. I found that the best candidates were the Magic 8 balls, but Magic 8 balls are actually surprisingly expensive. They can be from $10 to $15. However, they make some spin-off franchises of the Magic 8 ball, which you can get for a much cheaper price, called the Emoji Ball. It's made out of the same material and is much smaller. Not much smaller, much cheaper. So, my big challenge was how to change this into this, but, big enough that an Eggman figure could sit in it. Because, Eggman can't sit in this version of the Egg Pod. He has a stand in it. But I digress. Let's actually go ahead and do the thing. Step 1, of course, was cutting into the ball to make it the right shape for an Egg Walker, and removing the mechanism that had the D20 inside that had all the emoji faces on it. I always thought that these balls were, filled with water, but it turns out that there's just, some little cup in there that's held on with, this ring system so it doesn't move around. That was kind of interesting. And if you're wondering why there's holes poked in the top, I decided to drain the fluid out first before I cut into the ball, because I was afraid if I accidentally breached it while cutting it, then I would have spilled blue inky water everywhere, and that is incredibly hard to clean. The fluid from inside a Magic 8 ball stains. And then once I got that out, it was all about decorating it to look like Dr. Eggman's Egg Pod. There's a combination of foam board, craft foam, epoxy sculpt, little random bits of fodder I had lying around, everything just sticking stuff onto this ball to make it look like Eggman's iconic vehicle. And then with a little paint job, aside from the holes in the side, this looks pretty much just like Dr. Eggman's Egg Pod. If this is the only thing I had to do, then we'd be done by now. But this is not just Eggman's Egg Pod, it is his Egg Walker. That means that it needs a good pair of legs. And what would those legs be made out of? The same thing I make the legs for the Death Egg robots out of. Bionicle joints. So yeah, basically, these are mostly the same Bionicle joints that I used to make the arms and legs of the Death Egg robot. Except, as you can see, the part that I used to make the Egg Walker's thighs are shorter. They're only 1 hole long, while the ones that I used to make the arms and legs for the Death Egg robot are 3 holes long. Anyone who knows Lego parts, that you should be able to get that terminology. Of course, these parts only give me the articulated skeleton of the legs from the iconic Sonic Adventure 2 vehicle. I would need to actually, make them look the part. So the first thing I did, of course, was mount the, I guess I'm going to call them the hips in there. And let's take an internal look at the cockpit. And you can see here the little bench that the Eggman figure sits in, along with the anchoring points. I believe these are this is supposed to be like the connector for a certain Bionicle kit's head. I don't remember what it was. It's a very iconic shape though. And I got it because it has a nice long stem that can go through the body and still give me enough slack to attach the hip to. So this setup actually means that Eggman can sit on that little bench, and the hip connectors hold his feet against a little cylinder in the middle, and it keeps the figure very stably in his seat so he doesn't rattle around. He's genuinely sitting in there. With this little control panel that I mounted in the front, you can brace his fists against it, and it really holds him in place. So you can actually pose around your Egg Walker, and your Eggman figure will sit stably inside of it. And that was really cool. I like that it worked out that well. Now, on to making the legs look the part, instead of merely functioning the part. Here are some templates that I made for, the decorative parts of the feet and legs. So this is a lot like when I was making the Death Egg robot's feet. So you just start off with the Bionicle bit, attach structural components made out of foam board and craft foam, make sure everything is put together in the right shape, give it a proper paint job so it looks the part, and you have feet. Similar deal with the legs, the shins. I had to make sure that I was cutting everything in the right shape so that parts wouldn't clip into each other, because remember, these Bionicle joints were meant to have a wide range of movement when they're skeletal. When you build stuff around them, you got to make sure that you don't have bits that clash. So I want to make sure that they still have a wide range so that the legs will be posable and you'll be able to get off some cool stances for this thing. And that's part of the reason why the thighs are actually so simple, because you need the most range of freedom at the thighs. So a simple thing to emulate the shape of it and just hide the skinniness of the Bionicle part is really all I needed for the thigh bit. Put back together, this gives me an Egg Walker that is Walker. But as we all know, the Egg Walker has more than that little pea shooter on the front. It has a pretty significant shoulder-mounted cannon. So let's go ahead and make that part, and then the thing will officially be completed. So it actually took me quite a while to figure out what I was going to make this turret out of. I needed something that could rotate, but, wouldn't fall apart on me. And that's when I realized that I had this chapstick tube on my desk for several years, which was just about to empty. So all I had to do was cut it down to the proper length, and I had the perfect mounting point for the turret. I stuck the bottom half of it onto the side of the Egg Walker using some epoxy sculpt, which I later painted. And the top part is the cap with some Lego bits and epoxy sculpt to fill in the shape. It doesn't match the shape perfectly, but I'm taking some creative liberties to try and make it look good without killing myself with all the extra effort and materials. So all I had to do was paint this thing and then mount it back on the remainder part of the chapstick tube that was stuck to the Egg Walker. So with that, the thing would be properly, armed with a cool turret that could actually rotate, and that's a big win for me. So let's take a look at the completed Egg Walker from Sonic Adventure 2, and you can all heap me with massive amounts of praise. And there we go! Man, it's been a while since I made a good vehicle like this. This is head and shoulders above the Koopa Clown car that I made last year. In fact, I dare say this just might make it to the top 10 of 2019 if how people vote in the polls is the way that I think they do. But yeah, this was a really elaborate job. Just a couple of steps below the complexity of a Death Egg robot. I think if it was to be properly commissioned for this thing, I would charge $40 for it. Because it is quite the elaborate thing, and I gotta get extra parts for it and all that. But yes, it is Dr. Eggman's iconic Sonic Adventure 2 vehicle / playable avatar, and it's just so cool. It's big enough to be menacing, but not so big that it won't really fit in the standard toy shelf, because it is a little bit over 6 inches tall, so it's really only about the same size as a really big action figure. So, with all that being said, I really hope that you like this one, because I put quite a lot of effort into it, and we will see you in my next video. Catch you next time.